Good evening. I hope the lighting is good. This has caught me in the middle of my travels, so I'm going to trying to do a recap about the issues of the M23 in the DRC for you. As I had already discussed in part one of this DRC series, the M23 have moved southwards. They have captured Bukavu, and Uvira has also fallen. Burundi has called back their troops in the DRC. Remember, Burundi had sent its troops to the DRC to help forestall that M23 advance. They are calling back their troops. That leaves FARDC very open to M23 attack. In the areas that M23 is capturing, local police who are mostly local Congolese police who are mostly ex-FARS, ex-military, are surrendering massively to the M23. Many FARDC soldiers are also surrendering to the M23 and giving M23 a through pass into more territory. M23 on their part have confirmed that they are in this for the long haul and they are going to Kinshasa. I don't think that is feasible. I don't think they can achieve that. But let's wait and see. Now, what I want to discuss here are Tshisekedi's options. We already know that M23 is seriously considering a regime change in the DRC because Tshisekedi is a stumbling block to them. Remember, there was a time the M23 was to be assimilated into FARDC. They gave up arms. They were taken to garrisons around Goma with a promise to be flown all the way to Bakongo. That is the province that borders DRC and Angola. That is where the FARDC have their commando unit. They were supposed to be taken there for training. What Tshisekedi did after the M23 folks reported these garrisons, they were rounded up, arrested, and jailed. Now, what Tshisekedi did not know is that M23 actually did not send its core fighters to these garrisons. They sent nondescripts. So they basically hoodwinked Tshisekedi, and that is how they got to know about his true intentions. This has damaged the confidence between Tshisekedi and the M23. Now we already have the background of the M23 and who they are. So let's not get into that again. Tshisekedi's options. I think number one is to negotiate with the M23. I don't see any other logical thing to do at this point in time. The M23 have already proved their point. They have already embarrassed the regime in Kinshasa. And actually, if you watch keenly, there isn't much Western interest in this conflict. Nobody is coming to help Tshisekedi against the M23. That shows you that there's a lot more to this than meets the eye. Either somebody wants Tshisekedi out, or somebody has finally seen the point of the Banyamulenge. Now, I think Tshisekedi is having problems with political confidence in the DRC because he did not win an election. Tshisekedi was not even amongst the top three in the past presidential presidential election. How he became president was a deal that he pulled between himself and Joseph Kabila, who has since abandoned him. He has spoken very harshly of Kabila, and ear to the ground has it that the M23 have the blessings of Joseph Kabila. And Joseph Kabila, being who he is a very influential figure in the politics and the business of DRC to date. He's one of DRC's richest men. And when you're wealthy like that in the DRC, you can command armed conflict. And this is what is happening now. So when you see the top elections of FARDC very quiet, they are not coming out to strongly support their commander-in-chief. They are distant. They keep waiting for a miracle that is not going to happen. And Tshisekedi, on the other hand, has come to this realization that he's losing ground and he might lose the country. So one of the things that he should do is to negotiate with M23, and that's what M23 want. Give citizenship to Banyamulenge and appoint some of them to key positions in government. Banyamulenge are basically fighting for rights of self-representation. You see that even the governor of North Kivu is not an indigenous. This is one of the things that the Banyamulenge are resisting, because you keep bringing people from other areas to lord over them. I don't think that is a good thing, because I believe that leadership should be rotative and mixed in that sense. But in the DRC, it's a little complicated. It's a vast country with regional ethnic groups that to send some administration from Kinshasa out of the blue might not necessarily work in your favor. The governor of Goma was killed, and the government in Kinshasa could not do much about it. That was a sign of the weaknesses I have discussed about FARDC. Now, Tshisekedi finds himself with a problem that is not only military, but also political. The military one he has lost, and I don't see him repairing it, because I don't think Tshisekedi has the capacity to reformat FARDC. FARDC is a lost cause. FARDC is a destroyed unit. FARDC is a sinking ship that will need very, very serious elementary commitment to military or armed science that you can only see in FARDC, in M23. You don't see that in FARDC. And this is coming from the discipline of RDF. If you look at the happenings in M23, should I say liberated areas or captured areas, there has been very warm reception of citizens, both in Goma and Bukavu. Of course, the Western media wants to hype the sporadic looting and the loss of lives, which I think has been very minimal in that kind of armed conflict. I think that many more would have died. They have not. So that shows you that even the people of the East are sick and tired of Kinshasa. And so one of the things that Tshisekedi can do is to negotiate with M23, give them positions in government, and give them citizenship. That is what the Banyamulenge are demanding. Number two, Tshisekedi would do a radical thing and step down and call for another presidential election. Because as a person, he's not accepted even by Congolese themselves, the majority of Congolese. He lost an election and people are not happy with him. He was installed by Joseph Kabila, who was also hated by a majority of Congolese. So his presence in Kinshasa is not absolute in my view. Tshisekedi should step down and let the DRC go through the rigors of finding new leadership so that the country can make some enviable progress. Those are really the two options I'm seeing, because the more he holds on, he's going to aggravate this thing. If he does not negotiate now, then he's going to be toppled. And in the history of DRC, when a president or a regime is toppled, there's bound to be so many pockets of resistance. And if M23 succeeds in toppling Tshisekedi, then we are going to renew the problems that happened post the death of Laurent Kabila. You remember the government of Laurent Kabila, he had Tutsis of Rwandese origin as members of his cabinet. There was James Kabek, there was Bizima Karaha, who was his foreign minister, was Rwandese. The chef d'état-major général was James Kabere, who has been sanctioned by the US today. Yeah, so that problem is going to be renewed if the M23 is allowed to go all the way and topple Kabila. I think that is going to do a lot of disservice to the DRC and cause more problems. And that is going to cause a second war, so to speak, because the native Congolese will not have the Rwandese lord over them. Remember when they touched the Rwandese embassy in Kinshasa, it is because of some of these negative ethnic sentiments. So Tshisekedi can do the nation a favor by negotiating with M23 and giving in to some of their demands, the easy ones like citizenship and rise to local political representation. How he's going to maneuver incorporating them in cabinet is going to be tricky, because then that would cause an avalanche for him in Kinshasa with the Congolese, the native or the other Congolese, because Banyamulenge are also Congolese, you know. But in the meanwhile, I am also seeing a problem in Burundi. The regime in Kigali has got scores to settle with Burundi, because Burundi has been supporting the FDLR and the Interahamwe in the DRC against Rwanda. So one of the fears of Burundi now is that the Hutu regime in Bujumbura have their days numbered, because now they're buttressed between Kigali on this other side and the M23 across the border. Now, what the FDLR are going to do is to move further into the interior, into the Congo forest. And where they are going, they are not necessarily welcomed there, because the tribes further south don't subscribe to the Eastern ethnical mess. So they will also defend themselves against anybody they find further down. And of course, as I told you before, DRC has got very many private militia all over the place. So the FDLR could actually decimate themselves if they move further into the interior of the DRC. Their interest are better served if they hang around the border with Rwanda and Burundi. If they move further south, they will be zoned out. They will not receive arms. They might not get enough food because FARDC on the other side, which has been supporting them somewhat, is also overwhelmed and grossly disillusioned. So I also see a problem in Burundi coming up. I don't think Rwanda is going to sit pretty and let Burundi get away with it for having supported the FDLR against them. I think one of the things the M23 wants to do is to provide a safe passage for RDF to actively walk into Bujumbura through Uvira. So the regime in Burundi will wake up one day and find RDF at the doorstep. And it's going to be a bloodbath because that is going to be Hutu versus Tutsi, fair and square. That doesn't end well. That did not end well in Rwanda, and it will not end well in Burundi. Now, what might happen in that eventuality is the armed Hutu, which is weaker but more in numbers, could run into Tanzania as refugees and set up camp in the refugee camps and all, something which Kagame is not going to like. Kagame will then ask Tanzania for permission to walk into those camps and clean them up. And if you know the operation mathematics of the RDF, they do clinical jobs. The RDF cleans fair and square. It decimates. The RDF does not just play around. Yeah, those are very serious folks. And Burundi is running scared and they don't know what to do. The East African community is also muddled up with all politics and all. The chair of the East African community has got his own political problems back home in Kenya. You know, SADC will not listen to anything at the moment. They are watching out for their own political survivals. Tanzania is lining up itself for elections. They don't have time for all this conflict resolution stuff. They don't have, CCM does not have so much time. Chadema is giving them a run for their money. Angola just got elected for a chairmanship of the AEC. But you see, Angola is farther away from the zone of action. I don't think Zimbabwe has the capacity to come back into the DRC now. ZANU-PF is facing a lot of its own share of problems down there. And Zambia, as usual, has got a very sane president who is very keen on economically reviving his country. I don't think Zambia is keen to get into any of this DRC conflict. Yeah, they want to maintain that good neighborliness and that kind of thing. And also Zambia is further south and there is no conflict there. So Tshisekedi is left to his own devices. He needs to craft a very, very sober plan for his own redemption. He must negotiate with the M23, and I don't hold brief for the M23 at all. I hold brief for the Congolese people. I am not Congolese, I'm Kenyan, but I have worked and lived in the DRC for a while, and I understand the dynamics there. Tshisekedi must either negotiate with the M23 or step down and give room for a peaceful and more democratic election. If that does not happen, then the rebellion in the east is going to move southwards. And if it moves southwards, as the M23 have said, they're inching towards Kinshasa every day. Kinshasa is farther away, but it's very easy to get there with a weak FARDC and an FARDC that can defect and balloon the M23 in a day. Um, the other thing I want to say is I think Tshisekedi is also expecting too much from foreign players. Yeah. When you look for help, you must also show how you want to help yourself. People are not going to help you with anything and everything. Tshisekedi must also show how he's planning to help himself and his country. There has been this song about the DRC having so much in terms of minerals and all that kind of thing. Yes, be it as it may, we've had that for years and we actually know it. And it is not going to go away. What have you done with it for your country? How many roads have you built? How many hospitals? Do you pay your teachers? Do you pay your soldiers? Do you pay civil servants well? You see, these are things that Tshisekedi cannot account for. So it makes rebellion in the DRC the next most viable thing for dissent to do, as opposed to being in the political opposition. Okay? So he also has his share of the blame and he must take it. And if you checked, Uganda has also moved into the DRC on the side of Bunia, the northern side. So Uganda is also following the M23. And if you listen to my earlier clip, where I discussed the assistance that M23 receives. M23 receives assistance from both Rwanda and Uganda. So if you see the M23 very active inside Rwanda, it means inside DRC, it means Rwanda is already there and Uganda is not far behind. They've just come in through Bunia and also moving downwards. So they are following the M23. What they're doing essentially is mopping up what is left behind and increasing the strength of the infantry of the M23 going southwards. That is what is happening there. So I don't see the FARDC standing up to this rebellion, and Tshisekedi's time could be about up, in my view. Thank you.